All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Lindsay Davis with Spartan Invest, and I'm here with one of Birmingham's premier real estate closing attorneys, Jeff Parmer. Thank you so much for coming.
Hello, Lindsay. Thank you for asking me. It's a pleasure, always.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. And I just wanted to take this opportunity to talk to you for just a little bit on how your day-to-day job has been affected in closing real estate and what you've seen, some changes, just kind of an overall feel of everything that's been going on since, the governor today's Friday, the 27th, just issued a statewide, not mandatory shelter, but only essential businesses. So, basically putting the vast majority of the state of Alabama in quarantine. So what that looks like for your closings, your job, and the overall real estate market in general. So have you seen any, well, first off, just tell me kind of like about how many real estate closings typically are you doing in a month or so?
You're talking about in a regular month before all this started?
Yeah, just a regular kind of.
I mean, typically we would see closing in our office between 200 and 300 transactions a month. Volume-wise, so far we're down, but not tremendously. Of course, we're still closing things that have been under contract sometimes for more than a month. So I'm anticipating, of course, as we move deeper into this, the volume of closing may decline. But we're still getting new orders in every day. There's still a lot of regular buyers out there looking for houses, looking beyond all of this to the point where, they're obviously going to need a place to live and wanting to move and are going on with that. And there are, of course, a lot of investors are still very active in the market right now. What we've seen there, I think some of the upper end flipping folks that buy and fix up and resell have cooled off a little bit, I think, just to see what develops. But the folks that are buying properties for themselves to hold in their portfolio for rental or to buy and resell to someone who's going to hold as a rental, that market, I think, has at least from what I've seen, still stayed fairly steady to this point.
Yeah, and I mean, for the most part, like from a drop contract standpoint, have you seen a lot of the closings that you had slated? Do you see those tapering off, or have you seen a lot of that?
We've seen dropped contracts in the last 2 weeks. A few of them, and I'm talking maybe 1 out of 10 at the most. And some of those have been, we call them retail buyers that have gotten cold feet. There have been a couple of transactions that have fallen off because the lenders that they were using are not making any loans at this point, have put credit on hold. So there have been, various and sundry reasons for folks either putting it on hold or just backing out altogether. I've seen maybe a couple of times where the buyer said, look, just keep my earnest money. I don't want to go through with this. They just let it go. So I think that's kind of the extreme. But anyway, I think everybody is looking at this with some hesitation, of course, but trying to look beyond the next few weeks and look beyond to the point where we're all hopefully back to some sort of normal and conduct business with that in mind. Yes, fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed, definitely. And I wanted you to talk a little bit. So one of the big things surrounding kind of what Spartan does, the turnkey real estate area, and the vast majority of our closings are remote. And it still involves, obviously this is something that's affected everyone across the country and the world. So you were just talking about that Alabama's Governor Ivey just passed in a law about the notaries.
Yes.
And some exceptions that will really, really help investor clients continue to purchase out of state. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. We spoke, I guess it was last Friday, you and I were on another panel and spoke about the possibility of remote online notarization. Alabama did not have a statute allowing for that, but thankfully the governor late yesterday, entered an order proclamation that allows for remote online, we won't call it remote online notarization, but we'll call it kind of a video conferencing notarization to try to help us through this time of not being able to conduct business as usual. And as I read the proclamation, the way it would work, the notary would have to be either an attorney in Alabama or employed in an attorney's office in Alabama. We would then be able to go through some platform like Zoom or some other video conferencing platform with a signer on the other end, either a buyer or a seller. They would have the documents before them. Now we'll have to get the documents to them either by emailing them or FedExing a package if it's a big loan package. They would have the documents before them. We would watch them sign the documents. They would send the documents back to us, and then we, the notary, would notarize the documents when they were received back. And the notary would be effective on the date they signed it, not the day we actually sign our notary and put our seal on there. So obviously there will be some days of figuring this out and making it and implementing it, but it was a big sigh of relief to the folks I've spoken to in our industry to have this option out there, because to this point, we're still having to rely on mobile notaries that are still working to go out and meet folks to sign documents, or having people come into our office, or meeting them in the parking lot or something like that to get documents signed. We've made all kinds of arrangements like that to try to keep everybody safe. So, but huge too. We're glad.
Definitely. That's a huge sigh of relief for us, because that enables investors kind of everywhere to really take advantage of the really low interest rates and still continue to buy rental properties in other markets, outside of their own.
Right.
And without that big, because that was a really big factor too, is that you're not supposed to go around people and have other people in your home, and then mobile notaries having to go meet specific buyers at coffee shops or going to their house and stuff like that. So having that option is huge. That's very, very beneficial.
I think that's going to be very good.
Yeah. So aside kind of from the mobile notaries, what are the main questions from your real estate agents and or investors right now? What are the questions that you're seeing come in? Because I know when we were on the panel last Friday, you got a lot of questions from investors, just kind of all over the place. I know some were on eviction, and I know that you don't do a lot of evictions or any at all. Is that right?
No, I don't do any eviction work. Yes. But
what's your kind of getting right now from investors?
Yeah, we've gotten a lot of, well, not a lot, but a good number of calls about the eviction process. Is it, can it be done? What's the foreclosure process looking like? And I think those are some things that are valid concerns for folks that hold rental properties, because, you want to be a good landlord, but you also don't want to end up with property that's not turning capital. So I think those are valid concerns valid issues to be concerned about. Just from a logistical standpoint, evictions, I think, are going to be very difficult, if not impossible, for the next short run, because the courts are, operating on a very limited basis. The serving eviction papers would not be at the top of the list of priorities, even if anything was moving forward there. So I think those are some things to consider. But there again, I think, those are relatively short-term, hopefully relatively short-term concerns, as long as we can, in the next 2 or 3 months, be over the worst of this.
Right. I agree. And that I think that if from an investor standpoint, If the concern is rental payments or incoming rent, then I think the max that you're looking at is 2 months.
Right.
That's what we're trying to prepare our investors, our current investors for is, hey, you might be looking at 2 months. Now there's tons of money that the government is pushing through the stimulus to help property managers, real estate agents, and also anybody that's found themselves with no work from an unemployment standpoint. So I would imagine it would only be about 2 months, but I hate saying that and then watch it.
Yes, tank.
I don't want to give predictions or anything like that.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, as we talked about last week, the good point for folks that own rental property is that people still have to have a place to live. Even in the midst of all of this, there still has to be an availability of affordable housing for folks to rent or buy. And I think as long as that's the case, and I don't have any reason that it won't be for the foreseeable future, as long as that's the case, I think there's going to be a market for continued transactions and sales and purchases and all that. So, I mean, we've had several calls from folks that, have jitters about the stock market, or pulling cash out of the stock market and trying to put it into solid assets like real estate. So, I think everybody has to make their own decision about, is this a time I want to invest? Is this a time that I want to kind of step back and see what happens? I think everybody has to get kind of their own comfort level with things, but there are definitely still transactions going on. This order from the governor's office, I think, will greatly assist us, anybody that's working in real estate, in continuing transactions. And so I think all of these are good, positive developments.
Yeah, and from a comparison standpoint, I've seen a lot of people chime in. Is this the next recession? Is that where we're headed? And is it like 2008 and 9? And a lot of questions like that. And how long have you been processing real estate transactions in Birmingham?
Well, I've been practicing in Birmingham about 30 years and have been handling real estate transactions for about 20. So we lived through the recession period. We were, in the middle of that. Of course, the real estate market changed greatly in that year period, basically, from a lot of retail purchases to a lot of foreclosure resales and a lot of investors stepping in to buy distressed properties and things like that. I'm no economist. I certainly don't know what the future holds, but I know that this situation is different than what we had in 2008. That situation was driven by market forces, monetary forces. This is not. So, I'm hopeful that when the worst of this pandemic passes, that, we'll ramp up pretty quickly back into a fair number of real estate transactions, and that prices won't be hurt by all of this. I think the longer that it lingers, the greater the possibility that prices could be hurt. But as long as it's a relatively short-term event, then I think we'll be back, not in full swing, but certainly back to a healthy number of transactions and healthy prices. So.
Right, and I couldn't agree more that that they are completely different, and that given the stock market, like you said, a lot of people are apprehensive, and just given the fluctuation with that, that doesn't necessarily coincide with a crash in the housing market. And I genuinely hope that it is the 2 to 3 month span that would be the max to allow people to get back in the swing of things and no evictions or foreclosures during that time. But you're right. You're 100% right. No matter what, no matter how well or how poorly the economy is doing, people still have to have places to live, that they still have to have homes to reside in. So that's one of the biggest things that we try to continue to remind everybody is is, you want to take advantage, obviously, of the interest rates, but not saying that this is a good thing or anything like that, because we're taking our own precautions. Our office is closed. We're not showing any houses. We're allowing people to see the houses on their own, and we're not going into any occupied properties. So we're definitely doing everything that we possibly can to help in, what is it, flattening the curve or
Totally. And I think there have been a lot of, really anybody that works in our industry has had to figure out the work from home thing, limit the number of folks that are coming into the office to work, limit the number that are coming in for transactions as much as possible. One issue that we have started to see more of now are courthouses being closed and having an impact on the ability not only to record documents after closings, but also to do title research for, transactions that may be coming up. And so, that's something that we need to keep an eye on and keep in the back of our minds. If it lingers on for too long, that could start having an impact on our ability to prepare for new closings. But so far, Jefferson County has done a good job of continuing to receive and process documents that are sent for e-filing. And that's been a big help. So,
have you seen that in other counties like Tuscaloosa, Shelby, St. Clair, anything like that? Like there's processing?
The ones that are online for e-recording, I think, have continued to process documents. There are some courthouses, though, in our area that are not on e-filing, had not registered and been able to process documents for electronic filing yet. The number of counties that were accepting e-filing documents has even been growing this year. So, to be honest with you, I'm not sure I would feel comfortable saying, okay, these are the counties that are not doing e-filing, because I don't really even know for sure the ones that aren't. I know Blount and St. Clair were not, but they may have started, in the not too distant past accepting those. But I know those were would be two of the last ones that had come on for e-filing, if they are e-filing right now.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I wasn't even thinking about, we primarily are in Jefferson County, so I wasn't even thinking, we've got properties all over central Alabama. So as far as any potential delay in closings and processing title and recording, I wasn't even thinking about that. So thank you for bringing that up. Yeah. So that's all I've got right now. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you jumping on.
Always. I just appreciate y'all and all that you do. And if there's ever anything we can do to help you or any of your investors, let us know.
Thank you. We use Jeff for so many of our real estate closings. I promise you, I don't think that this guy ever takes a day off or sleeps. I'm not sure how he does it, but the best of the best in Jefferson County, hands down. So thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And y'all stay safe.
All right, you too. Thanks.
Bye-bye.